So in November of 1918, Germany surrendered to the Allies. And shortly after, the very beginning of 1919, the Paris Peace Conference took place. This was a meeting between what was known as the Big Four, the US, Britain, France, and Italy. Notice that the Central Powers were left out of the meetings, and so was Russia. Allied leaders from Britain, France, and Italy wanted to blame and punish Germany, while Wilson, representing the United States, wanted to create a world with peace, and he recommends his 14 points. However, most of the 14 points were ignored by the leaders of Britain, France, and Italy, or compromised. Wilson did manage to secure the idea of a League of Nations. The Versailles Peace Treaty was created as a result of the Paris Peace Conference. And in this treaty, 9 new nations were created and several borders were moved or rearranged. Germany is demilitarized. They are not allowed to have an army. Germany must also pay war damages. And probably worst of all, Germany must accept guilt for the war. And this was very humiliating for Germany, and it really only fueled their anger and resentment towards the Allies. Of course, the weaknesses created in this treaty will lead to future war. We all know that's World War II. So the Versailles Peace Treaty does not provide lasting peace. Also, Germany can't repay its debts for damages caused by World War I. Russia is insulted because they've been completely ignored and they've lost territory, and colonialism remains in Europe. Many people thought the Treaty of Versailles was too harsh on Germany, and also the economic consequences of this punishment were not really considered when it was created. Others thought it really just changed nothing in terms of the domination of Europe. It really was just an exchange of power and colonies. Many U.S. leaders disliked the League of Nations, and this is interesting because it was sort of the one thing out of the 14-point plan that was accepted by Europe, and it was not accepted by the United States. They felt it threatened isolationism because, of course, Americans want to return to a state of isolationism after World War I. Henry Cabot Lodge was an outspoken opponent of the treaty, and he was known as Wilson's nemesis, or his enemy. He says that the treaty threatens our ability to stay out of foreign affairs. He thinks that we should be involved in international affairs. But in it, he argues that in order to do so, we have to have the ongoing development of increased army and navy. Military strength, he says, is a prerequisite or a necessary thing if you're going to have diplomatic power. So Wilson sets out on a tour, essentially, to try to convince the people that the Treaty of Versailles it is probably going to have some flaws, and that the League of Nations is really the best solution for world peace. He gives 34 speeches in 3 weeks. And probably as a result of that, suffered a stroke. Unfortunately, he died while still in office, and the United States Senate never approved the Treaty of Versailles, nor did it join the League of Nations. However, Wilson did leave an impressive legacy. He was, of course, a progressive reformer, the last progressive president. He created the FTC and the Federal Reserve, was involved in creating the FDA, also was a strong advocate for women's rights. He successfully lowered tariffs and created the Clayton Antitrust Act. If you don't remember what those items are, it might be a good time to go back and review. Also, during his presidency, we see both the 18th and 19th Amendment passed, the 18th being prohibition, the 19th being women's suffrage, or the right to vote. Wilson is also credited with the victory in the Great War. In addition, he's credited with the vision of a world organization to prevent war, known as the League of Nations. And of course, we have something like it today, which he planted the seed for. And lastly, Wilson predicted that future wars would be caused by the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles, that this would offer no solution to world peace. And last of all, he predicted Germany's desire for vengeance, and that would lead to, of course, another great war. That's it for this presentation. We'll be back with the effects of World War I on the United States in our next series of videos.